Intelligence is not enough. Now, the reason I'm saying this is if you look at top experts in the field of climate science, for example, then you find that the further you go up in terms of qualifications and experience, you actually get more divergence rather than more agreement. Okay, and the reason for this is we have masses of cognitive biases. So, if we believe something to be the case, then we will find evidence that supports that and diminish, downplay evidence that kind of contradicts our position. That's a classic bias called confirmation bias. But there's actually a whole range of these, and I think people are becoming a little bit more aware of them. Certain books like Thinking Fast and Slow by Dan Kahneman are really bringing to light these kind of issues about how, we can't just go ahead and think that because we're intelligent, then we understand the situation, because there's so much more that's involved in getting a clear picture of what's really going on in the world. So we need to be aware of our biases. We need to be aware of the ways in which we are systemically irrational. So a classic one that I've just read about in a book called something irrationality, Predictable Irrationality, great book, is about the anchoring effect. And, we all know about it. So if you're talking about a house price and someone mentions a number, you're like, everything else will be having to kind of justify itself in relation to that number. Or if you get a medical diagnosis and someone says that's what's wrong with you, then even if you don't agree, it's going to be really hard to kind of move away from that original anchor and say, well, actually, I don't agree. Can we look at it afresh, And those are just a couple of examples, but there's like literally hundreds of ways in which we systemically misinterpret the world or get a unbalanced perspective. So we need to be willing to challenge, I'm not going to say our ignorance, but it kind of is, if you know what I mean, because we're not aware of these biases. And even when we are aware of them, we're still subject to them. So, given that fact, then we certainly need to do our very best, at least to become, aware of them, to learn about them, to see where we might be acting on them, and to minimize. We can't necessarily completely get rid of the effect of these biases and irrational ways of thinking and perceiving, but we can minimize them. And then we can have the humility, recognize that we are not capable really of forming really good, clear understandings on our own, and then have the conversation with other people and say, well, what's your part of the picture? What's your perspective? Can we get this kind of aggregate where all of our biases are minimized through this cooperative exploration of our realities? Thanks for watching.